Is Sonic Racing CrossWorlds worth $90? Or even $70 for the standard edition? Well, that is a pretty steep asking price considering that it is a racing game, and this is the highest any Sonic game has ever been. Not even Sonic Frontiers was priced at $90. Its digital deluxe version was priced at $70. So the question is Sonic Racing CrossWorlds really worth the steep asking price of $90 for the digital deluxe edition? Or even $70 for the standard edition? Well, in this video, I would like to discuss that and go over everything that I enjoy about the game, but also some nitpicks that I have with it and things that I dislike. So with that being said, let's talk about Racing CrossWorlds. The first thing I'd like to go over is everything that the Digital Deluxe Edition has to offer. The biggest thing I will say is going to be the Season Pass that comes alongside with it. If you plan on getting the Season Pass or any of the DLC, I would automatically say that it's probably worth it to get the Digital Deluxe Edition, because you will end up saving $10 in the long run, and I think that the DLC is going to be a bunch of fun and has a bunch of really cool characters, tracks, and vehicles inside of the DLC that have already been announced. It's still pretty crazy in my mind to think that SpongeBob SquarePants is going to be a playable character in this game. But the other thing that you're going to be able to get is the Prime Pack, where you're able to get Dread, Rusty Rose, and Nine from the hit show of Sonic Prime. Now, I can't say personally I'm the biggest Sonic Prime fan. I enjoyed the show to an extent, I suppose, but after Season 1, I fell out of it quite a bit. But I do think it's really cool that these characters are an option inside of the Digital Deluxe Edition of the game. I would say if you're not a big Sonic Prime fan, it's probably not super worth it for that point. And to be honest, I don't really use these three all that often. I think they have really cool animations and overall a really cool looking model. But I will say it's a pretty big damn shame that they don't have any voice acting at all. I mean, even just taking clips from the show would have been fine with me, but I get it, you probably would have had to pay the voice actors more. But it is just a little weird kind of playing with them, and they just kind of make weird sound effects. And the same goes for the Werehog. Not bringing back the likes of Jason Griffith or even having Roger Craig Smith give his take on the Werehog finally would have been just really cool to see, and it's one of the most iconic parts about the character is his voice. But that isn't part of the Digital Deluxe Edition. You had to pre-order the game, so I'm hoping that people that didn't pre-order the game and still want this character, they'll still have the ability to buy it later on, and I'm sure Sega will do that, as they've already done that with the Blue Star, Sonic's board from Sonic Riders in the game, where you can buy it for $2 if you didn't get the redeem code from Sega's website. And the last thing I'll touch on the Prime Pack, it's a huge shame that we didn't get Chaos Sonic in this. I think he is one of the coolest characters in the entire show. A big part of him is definitely his voice, and he for sure would not have had that if he was part of this pack, but I still think it would have been really cool just to have him in the game. It's just a really cool alternative to Metal Sonic, and I think he would be really cool in this game. But that's all that you get with the Digital Deluxe Edition. One of the bigger things was getting the game 3 days early, which I really enjoyed and was the biggest reason that I personally bought it, was being able to play the game 3 days early. Now that we're completely past the official release date for all platforms and all versions of the game, that doesn't really matter now, so. But the biggest takeaways from the Digital Deluxe Edition is definitely the Season Pass and the Prime Pack, for sure. But I would say if you're already planning to get the game no matter what, or you're still considering it later on, I would for sure do it instead of the Standard Edition just so you can get the DLC, as I think the DLC is going to be a bunch of fun, especially if you're the likes, of a Minecraft, SpongeBob, Mega Man, Ninja Turtles, or Avatar fan that would love to play as those characters and have specific carts and also courses to them. And I really hope that Sega does some really cool festivals for them later on. But kind of on the topic of characters, the initial roster is actually such a great choice of characters, and I love that there are so many returning characters in this game. Characters like Silver, Blaze, the Chaotix, the Babylon Rogues. Seeing Sage as a playable character is all super great, and I absolutely love that Sega decided to include each and every single one of them. Now, there are definitely some characters that got left out, and I think that they definitely could be added later on as long as this game continues to have a really big support system from fans. But I think the initial roster is genuinely super great, and I think that Sega did a great job with picking each individual racer in this game. And there even is some icons in the game inside of the online mode of the game where you're able to see some of the Sonic characters that were left out, like Mephiles the Dark, Infinite, Black Doom, Chaos Zero. I would love to see some of those characters get added into the game. I admittedly am a huge Mephiles the Dark fan, and he's my favorite villain in the entire series, and it would be a huge bonus to have him added to the game. Now, I think it's pretty unlikely that he does, but it would be really cool to see a little bit more villain representation in that form. But overall, the initial roster is great, and I'm glad that Sega decided to include so many of them. And I think if you would have told me that the Werehog would have been the pre-order bonus, I would have called you crazy. It's still pretty crazy to think that he's in this game, even if he doesn't have a voice. The next thing that I'm going to touch on is the extreme gearboards and the cars. Now, there are a bunch of different types of vehicles that you have to play from in the game. You have speed, acceleration, handling, power, and boost being the extreme gearboards that we know from Sonic Riders. The first thing I will say is just having the extreme gearboards back in any capacity is just a super big bonus, and super big kudos to Sega for adding the extreme gearboards, as this has been something that we've asked for such a long time inside of racing games. And this is just a crazy way of having the best of both worlds, of having an incredible game like Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, but also having the extreme gearboards in them. Now, these boards definitely do not perform anything like they really do in the Riders games, but it's still really cool to have them, and the way that they program them and the way that they control is just really nice and super fitting for the game to go alongside with the cars. And being that I am an extreme gearboard maid when I play online, I will say that these are such a fun time to use, and all of them have different stats, so it's really fun to be able to use each and every single one of them and find which best works for me. And also just the really cool new design of some of these boards is really cool. I mean, come on, who doesn't love the Jaws rocket? He's so cute. Also, the little sneaky thing that they did with the Babylon Rogues boards is really cool. If you take a look at each of their boards, you have the Type J that is from the original Sonic Riders for Jet. Storm has his Type S Stream, which is from Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. And then Wave has her Type W Windy, which is from Sonic Free Riders. So there is representation from each of the Riders games in this game, which is actually such a cool thing to do, and I'm so glad that they did this, as it gives you the option to be able to use any board from that game or design it to look like their board from that game. It's cool to be able to use their Type S Stream and then make it Jet's colors, and it kind of looks like his board from that game. But I'm super happy with the way that they did the extreme gearboards, and I hope that they add more in the future, as it looks like there has already been somewhat of a leak on Knights getting an extreme gearboard. But the speed type is another one that's really fun. It's just going to basically be your top speed and how fast that you can go. In my opinion, these speed type vehicles actually have some of the best looking vehicles. Sonic and Shadows are obviously super good looking, but the car like the Mirage Blade, the Stealth Chaser, which is Espio's vehicle, the Wild GT, Buster M, which is Metal Sonic's vehicle, all just look super badass looking and are such a cool thing to be able to customize. The extreme gearboards aren't that much fun to customize in my opinion, just because you're only changing the front and the back of them. And when it comes to the decals with the stickers, it's really hard to find a really good place for them. On speed cars, it's very easy to find a really good place for them, and it also is cool that you can change out the wheels to match whatever you're trying to create as well, and that'll still change the stats as well. But I think Sega definitely balled out when it came out to how the speed vehicles look, and all the speed characters got really good vehicles, which a lot of them are from Team Sonic Racing. They just happen to be in a better game now, so you can kind of appreciate them a little bit more. I also super love that the Super Shining is a hidden vehicle within the game. If you didn't know, once you beat all of the rivals in Race Park, you actually get Super Sonic's vehicle, which is just a upgraded, enhanced version of Sonic's car. Now, what's kind of funny is the Speedster Lightning, Sonic's original car, is actually faster when it comes to top speed. I don't know why they don't just share the same stats, or why the Supersonic vehicle isn't just a little bit faster, considering Supersonic does tend to be faster than normal Sonic. But honestly, the stat changes don't really affect that much when it comes to typing. Like, yeah, they definitely, you know, change some stuff, but I would say changing it by a point or two, you're not going to feel that super drastically in a race. I think you're more or less kind of choosing between which class that you want to do and the characters that you're using. But moving on to acceleration, that's going to help you accelerate a lot faster in the game. I have to be honest, I haven't used acceleration too much when it comes to my vehicle choice, but they have some really cool designs. As much as I hate Zaz as a character, not sorry, I actually really enjoy his vehicle. It's super cool looking and kind of reminds me of like a Mad Max type of vehicle. And also the Hyper Scorpion and the Cyber Spear are super cool looking as well. I love that the Hyper Scorpion has two huge thrusters in the back of the vehicle. And of course, I have to mention the Giganto vehicle as well. I still think it's pretty crazy to think that Sage just completely dismantled or destroyed Giganto to kind of use it as her vehicle within this race. But it's really cool that there is more Frontiers representation, as I absolutely loved Frontiers as a game. And while I haven't used Sage a bunch as a character, I have actually used the Giganto with Sonic quite a bit, as I feel it's still kind of somewhat fitting to kind of make him more like Frontiers. Or if you use Super Sonic with the Giganto liner, that's another really cool thing as well. But acceleration is definitely one that I need to try out more, but I can definitely see how some people would love the acceleration vehicles, as they do really get great acceleration when you're using them. Next is handling. Now, handling I think is by far the most broken vehicle to use, especially online. fine if you're using a lot of the drift gadgets. Just the way that you have control over the vehicle and the way that you're able to turn around corners and also get a bunch of drift level off with getting a huge boost from it is such a good feeling, and it's a vehicle that I actually used quite a bit. Now, I definitely have used extreme gear more than any vehicle, but handling is for sure my second most played. Now, I will say that I'm a little disappointed with some of the way that the handling vehicles look. There are DLC vehicles coming in the likes of the minecart and also the paddy wagon from SpongeBob, so I'm excited to kind of use those as well. But definitely the highlights of the handling vehicles are definitely going to be Silvers and the likes of the Neo Lytron. The Hot Hatch is super good looking, which is actually the one that I use the most. And the only other one that I really like is Rouge's, which is the Lip Spider. Amy's is okay. I don't really love the carriage. The Moto Beetle's okay. The Ancient Throne just kind of looks a little awkward, especially when you're trying to combine it with other vehicle parts. The Little Lady is kind of similar to Amy's, but it's a little bit more roundish looking, which it's okay, I suppose. And the Fossil Rock is not really my personal favorite. It's just hard to find a character that really fits with the Fossil Rock, which is a shame considering how much I like handling. I just wish some of the vehicles looked a little bit better in my opinion. But don't let that discourage you from using handling, because handling by far is super broken in the game. And honestly, if you want to win a lot of online games, I would definitely recommend doing handling. I mean, the #1 player in the world has been using the Hot Hatch with Amy, so I think that should stand for something. The top player named Callie Mac N has been running this for quite a while, and she's been absolutely dominating the track. So if you want to dominate, I would definitely copy her stuff, as she's been doing great, and you can watch her streams and just see how good she does over on Twitch. Moving over to the power vehicles, and by far being my least played vehicle, I will say I do really love a lot of the designs here, and they have some great choices. I absolutely love Vector's vehicle, as this is something that we see a lot in the IDW comics when the Chaotix are on missions. I love that Big is based off of Froggy, being the Frog Cruiser. I think Omega's is super fitting. I think the Trail Runner is actually really cool looking, even though it just kind of looks like a IRL truck. Eggman's is great with the Egg Drillster, super iconic from the classic games. And my personal favorite is actually the Werehogs. It's just super fitting for him, and I love that the wheels have spikes very much like his shoes. And if I were to ever kind of try out the power vehicles a little bit more, I would for sure be using that vehicle. Now, Ichiban from Yakuza is coming out later this year, and he has a power vehicle as well, and his vehicle actually looks super cool looking, and I'm excited to use that. Now, power isn't necessarily a stat that I super love in my opinion. It's good, but it isn't something that I think will really fit my personal playstyle, and it might fit yours. But power basically just affects just how fast you're going to recover from items. And I think that it definitely is a stat that is super good to have, considering how chaotic these races can get, especially online. I can't tell you the amount of times online that I've been in first place and then get bombarded at the end of the race and get last place. Or close to last, at least. It happens way too many times to not at least consider using power vehicles, and I definitely should give it an own try online myself. But that's all of the vehicle types. I think Sega did an amazing job with a lot of the designs, and also just being able to have different features as well when it comes to each of the vehicles, as using each of these types has its own benefit, and there's definitely different ways to play through each course, and some tracks definitely benefit from different types. There are some that Extreme Gear work amazing on, but I have to be honest, there's somewhere that just doesn't work great on. And sometimes you have to take that into consideration, especially if you're going into time trial and trying to get the best time possible, or trying to get those extremely hard S ranks that I'll get into in a little bit. But the customization is definitely the highlight of this, and I think that's a big thing that it has over Mario Kart in my opinion. I know a lot of people might not necessarily care about customization, but I think that's a big thing that I really enjoy. I love being able to change the stats of the vehicle that I like, or just make a really cool looking vehicle. Being able to slap whatever vehicle part that I want on there, and then being able to add a different horn, different stickers, and also a different aura is just a really cool touch, and you can really kind of make it fit to any character. I think it's just cool and by itself that you're able to just go into modify if you're doing a Grand Prix, select Sonic's vehicle and say you're using silver and just slap his colors onto it to match it, instead of using the blue vehicle that just kind of looks a little awkward on it. It's just a really cool detail that I really appreciate from Sega to do in this game. And surprisingly, not a lot of people know that you can do that if you go into Grand Prix mode, is you can just press modify, select whatever vehicle parts you want and wheels, change the color, and then it won't save that to your custom vehicles. So if you don't want to waste a slot of your custom vehicles, you can do that, which I pretty much did for the most of my time running through the Grand Prix. But I will say, I hope that they kind of increase some of the customization slots in there, as you can only have 5 custom vehicles in each type of vehicle. I hope that they kind of expand that space a little bit more, maybe up to like 10. Just because there are so many characters, I'd kind of like to customize it to fit that character the most. Some of my mains consist of Silver, Shadow, Metal Sonic, and Jet, and I definitely kind of made a own board or vehicle to match each of those characters in each slot. I think with characters coming out over time, but also me using some other characters, as I've kind of slightly been using Blaze and Espio recently, I would like to kind of have some more slots without having to, you know, delete some of my old ones. But 5 is still a decent amount. But that kind of brings us into gameplay. Obviously, all those boards have different effects on the way that gameplay can work, but overall, the game just feels so extremely smooth. The game runs amazing. Both the cars and the Extreme Gear boards also feel super good as well. The track design is super good as well, in my opinion. I know that there are some tracks that some people despise. One in particular that I know that people really dislike is Blizzard Valley, where there's ice everywhere and you just go flying off the tracks, especially in supersonic speed. But honestly, I really like a lot of the tracks. I can't really say that I dislike any of them. Yeah, Blizzard Valley can be annoying sometimes, but if you honestly just let go of the acceleration while you're drifting, you'll be just fine. Which was something that I had to learn the hard way, as I didn't know that you could do that acceleration thing where you just let go and drift. So Water and Blizzard Valley are definitely a lot better in my ranking now that I know you can do that. But I have to be honest, there's not really a stage that I dislike. I'm not even like trying to be biased there. I really like all of them. When I hop online, I'm totally fine with any of the tracks that get picked. I'm not really disappointed whenever one gets selected or dreading a race whenever it happens. And the same can go for CrossWorlds as well. All of the CrossWorlds are a bunch of fun. There's so many different pathways that you can go on in a lot of these, and there's a bunch of different shortcuts, especially with the Wisp boost, that just make the game so much fun, and it's really fun to just be able to learn each of these tracks. The big thing I will say over Mario Kart is a lot of those tracks aren't super rememberable in my opinion. I would say that I definitely have more playtime in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds now than I do Mario Kart World, but I will say Mario Kart World's tracks aren't bad, they're just really hard to remember, a lot of them. I will say that all of the tracks in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds are super memorable, with not only having a really cool visual and also just really beautiful looking tracks, but just overall the design of them is just super good, and none of them are the same. Yeah, you can only make a track so different, but they did a really good job at making them all feel very different. And I'm super impressed with just how good the course design really is in this game, and all the tracks are super fun to play. Now, there are two other things that I kind of want to talk about, and one is going to be the item balancing. Now, this game is by far super chaotic. And believe it or not, in the closed network test and also the network test before that one, this game was even more chaotic, where there were just items flying absolutely everywhere at all times. There definitely are some spots in the tracks where there isn't too much happening, which is kind of nice to get somewhat of a breather between items. But this game is still very, very chaotic, especially when you're playing online. You're gonna get smacked by items, it's just a matter of when. I don't know if I've ever played a single game in this without getting smacked by some item. And I think that's fine, I think the chaoticness is fun, but I will say it eliminates some of the skill aspect to the game. There are gadgets that can help with that, like the level 4 boost that gives you a shield, but overall I will say that there are just some items that I despise. And I don't mean that in the way that it makes the game unplayable, I just mean it in the way that it's so annoying to get hit by whenever I do. Looking at you, Sawblade, I absolutely despise you. The biggest thing that I have a problem with the items, and most namely the Sawblade, is it's really hard to defend yourself. You can obviously have a shield or even the tornado that's going to protect you from certain items, but it's really hard to time hitting items back to where you're protecting yourself. So if you have a glove and you throw it back and there's a glove coming at you, you can deflect it off of each other and it's not going to hit you where you're defending yourself. Kind of similar to when you would hold out a green shell in Mario, so you weren't able to get hit from the backside, which was nice. You can't hold items behind you, you have to throw them and time them. And whenever you're not going in a straight line, if you're drifting or slightly turning, it's really hard to hit them. And sometimes the Sawblade just takes some really drastic ways to get to you, where it's kind of flying all over the place. So it's kind of hard to be able to block it sometimes. I wish there was a little bit easier of a way to be able to block some items, as there's been some times where I have lost races because I wasn't able to time it correctly, as you have to be super precise. The biggest thing that I will say for advice wise is just, if you can, go as straight as possible if you see an item flying at you. But that obviously isn't necessarily always an option in a lot of stuff, as it's really hard to do so, especially in the flying areas. It's hard to just fly straight, as there's hazards happening all over the place, but also boosters that you want to try to hit to go as fast as possible. And sometimes missing out on those boosters can really cause you from having first place. But overall, the item selection is actually really good. As annoying as they can be, and as annoying as it can be to deflect them, I'm actually really impressed with how good the items were. This is actually something that I was pretty concerned about when the game was initially announced, as Sonic has never been super good about items in racing games. Racing Transformed was probably the best one by far, but overall I wouldn't say that I've loved the items from that game. They completely redid everything in this game and they feel great. The punching bags feel great. As much as I hate it, the saw is really good. The boosts that are basically identical to how mushrooms kind of operate in Mario Kart. The Wisp boost is probably my favorite item with just how many shortcuts you can pull off with this. The absolute adrenaline rush you feel from taking a huge chunk out of the stage and just whipping into first place in front of everyone just for having a Wisp boost is such a good feeling, especially in E Stadium and Kronos Island, where there are two huge shortcuts in the Wisp boost in these stages. But also I love that there is kind of like a blue shell as well, where you have King Boom Boo that will hit the person in first place, and he'll throw tornadoes back to where the point where you can still get hit by it even if you're not in first place. It just directly targets the person in first. Now, there are definitely ways to dodge it or defend yourself with having the likes of the shield, or timing a Wisp boost super perfectly to where it won't hit you, which I haven't been able to master yet. I've tried really hard, but it's actually really hard to be able to do that, surprisingly. But overall, I will say the items are great. As much as a pain in the neck they can definitely be, I love all of them. The last thing I'll talk about when it comes to gameplay, and this is probably my biggest thing that I dislike about it, is the collision. Now, I'm not saying that they should completely remove collision by any means, as it's a racing game and it should have collision. But this game has collision turned all the way up times 10 to the max. Where if someone hits you, especially if they have like collision boost, you will just go flying off the track. There's been a few clips that I've seen where people will just completely fall off the track, spawn, and they'll just keep getting knocked off the course because people keep hitting them as they're spawning back in. And I think that's a bit crazy. I mean, I get it. I get that there are definitely gadgets that can help you with that. Like the collision boost can help with that. And there's also the psychopaths that run spin drift that will basically knock you away from them. I personally don't like the spin drift. It's just really confusing to me, but I get how some people could like it, but it also is very annoying when you get hit by it. Racing next to someone and all of a sudden they spin drift you and then you go flying off course and then you're going from 2nd place to 10th place, but it happens. I think that should be touched up a little bit, in my opinion. I don't think that it needs to be drastically touched up. I think there should still be a decent amount of collision, and I think those gadgets should still do what they do, but I think that a lot of the really big hit collision stuff should be left to those gadgets. There's just been way too many times I've been knocked off the track, and most notably in Chow Park in that one big turn. It is so goddamn hard to be able to recover from that stupid turn, especially when there are other players coming at you. You can just go flying off the track sometimes. There's also times where you're going in a straight line, say at the end of the race. If a player truly feels like it, they can just kind of turn left or right and then kind of hold you against the wall and make you constantly lose rings and prevent you from passing them, which I guess in a way could be kind of strategy in a way. But it is definitely really annoying when you say have like a Wisp boost and you're trying to get past them, but you can't because they're literally just destroying you against a wall. So I think that it should be toned down maybe a little bit if they were to do any like patches or anything like that. But maybe that's just my opinion. I just think it's a bit crazy right now, but I think it's still a good thing to have. Now, when it comes to Grand Prix, this is by far my favorite game mode of the single player aspect of the game. Now, Grand Prix will have 8 different Grand Prix and 2 to come with the DLC. And all of these are a bunch of fun. Like we said, the track's design and everything that it has to offer within those is a bunch of fun. But the biggest thing that I will say with the Grand Prix and what makes it so good is not only having really cool red star rings hidden amongst each stage that can give you a bunch of bonus tickets, but the rival system is truly the highlight of this mode. Now, rivals are basically going to be something that you're assigned to when you start the Grand Prix. Typically, when you're first starting out, they'll be offered in 2s, where you'll have the normal one where it's just your standard difficulty, or if you want to up the difficulty, you can give yourself a little bit more of a challenge. You have the option on the left side that will pop up as well. Now, these rivals can get very, very hard, especially if you're doing on max difficulty, as these CPUs do not mess around and will easily destroy you if you're not careful, which I think is a great option to have if you want more of a challenge. stage. And you also get more tickets as well, which is a nice bonus, where these tickets can be used on vehicle parts and also friendship to get you different skins, stickers, and so on and so forth. But the really cool thing about this is you're also able to select your own rivals as well, where at the beginning of each Grand Prix, they'll have kind of their own written dialogue that will go off of the playable character that you're using. So if you're, for instance, using Silver and you go up against Shadow, they'll have a unique voice line. Or if you're using Sonic and go up against Eggman, they'll have their own unique voice line. It's really cool to see some of the characters that have never interacted in a mainline game, or any game for that fact, kind of come up with a cool thing, but also kind of some characters that haven't seen each other in a long time have their own voice lines as well. And I just gotta say, I love Jet so much. I think he is by far the highlight of any of the rival fights.
Hey there, do you like to race too?
Do I like to? Are you kidding me? Do you know who I am?
His new voice actor is really grown on me, and just some of his interactions is just so funny. But there also were some other characters that are super good with their different rival dialogues as well. And I love that you have the option to be able to pick whoever you want. Say that you really want to play as Sonic the next Grand Prix? Okay, perfect. You can pick whatever rival that you want to hear the dialogue with him with. This is something that I think all racing games should honestly do. Because realistically, in every racing game, at least every Mario Kart that I've ever played, there's always that one CPU that always kind of sticks around the top with you. There's always that one CPU that's always just gotta give you a challenge more than the others. Or that's always kind of fighting for that top spot of always getting, second, first, and third place. It's really cool to be able to select that CPU that's going to be the hardest difficulty in the race. So it's really cool to be able to have different matchups or create different matchups in this, and also have those unique dialogue mods. If there is a Sonic Racing CrossWorlds 2 or whatever the next Sonic Racing game will be, I hope that they will continue this forever, as this is such an amazing idea. But also there are bonuses for doing the Grand Prix, as there are some unlockable stuff as well, which is super nice. Things like after completing all of the Grand Prix, you'll actually end up unlocking mirror mode, where it's going to reverse each track, which is definitely a big thing that kind of messes with your brain, but it is a really fun time to do, and also just a fun time to go back and play all the tracks that feel very different. And once you defeat all your rivals, you'll actually unlock a hidden character in the game in Super Sonic. Now, Super Sonic is only a playable character inside of Grand Prix mode, which can be somewhat of unfortunate, but it is definitely for good reason, as this dude's stats are insane, and this guy does not run off rings like he does in previous Riders games, and he's completely invincible to every item. It genuinely feels like a cheat code whenever you're using Super Sonic, as he will completely just not be affected by any item whatsoever. Which I can see how some people might find fun. I mentioned it in my previous video. I don't super love using Super Sonic. I'm glad that he's in the game to some capacity, as it's always a bonus to see Super Sonic. Like, I get it, he's Super Sonic, and that's kind of his whole shtick, is being invincible, but the Grand Prix just feel so easy when you're using him, even in max difficulty to me, or even in Super Sonic Speed. Super Sonic Speed's another thing that you unlock when you complete all of the Grand Prix, where it's just basically a 200cc version of each of the tracks, where everything's going to be moving faster. Now, Super Sonic Speed is really chaotic, as it's really easy just to go flying off of stuff if you're using a speed character or a speed type of vehicle. But for most of my time in this, I actually ended up using a handling type vehicle, as it meant that it was going to be a lot easier to be able to turn on certain sections of the course. But even doing Super Sonic Speed in max difficulty, Super Sonic just makes it way too easy, so I've never really touched him too much unless I'm grinding to Don pot tickets. Grand Prix as a whole is such an amazing mode, and out of any racing game that I've played in a non-biased opinion, this is by far the best Grand Prix mode that I have ever played in any racing game. Not only having the rival system, having multiple different speed options at the beginning of the game as it launches, having a mirror mode to go alongside with it, having a super unique dialogue that makes every single time you play the Grand Prix super unique is just a super cool idea. There are hundreds of different dialogue options with different characters in the game. Some of them are for sure better than others, and some of them are a little disappointing, but it's cool to be able to explore all of them and be able to find them all. I refuse to watch a video that shows me every single one, because I want to be surprised every time I play Grand Prix mode by what the dialogue is going to be. So honestly, super big kudos to Sega on just how they completely knocked it out of the park with Grand Prix mode in this game. But the other mode that they completely knocked it out of the park with, no pun intended, is Racing Race Park. Now, Race Park is a little bit different, where it's a little bit more creative kind of game modes. Where in this, you're going to go up against these AI rivals that Dodonpaw created to look like the playable characters in the game. Now, within this, there are a bunch of hidden vehicles that you can unlock, but also the supersonic vehicle that I mentioned earlier. And these AI racer skins that you actually go up against are actually something that are unlockable inside of the friendship part of the game as well, where you can donate Dodonpaw tickets to each playable character, and once you get them to level 4, you'll actually end up unlocking these skins as playable skins, which is really cool. I hope that they add more skins in the future, but not to get too sidetracked. Race Park has a few different game modes that you're able to pick from, and these are going to be game modes that you're going to see a lot of in festivals. A few of those consist of triple team ring grab, triple team tap boost, double team dash panels, double team shootout, quick match, extreme match, and custom match. Now, custom match won't actually help you defeat the rivals, as it's kind of making your own rules and you're not allowed to fight your rivals on that, but it's still cool to have that option to create your own type of match. But I love that there are different ways to be able to play through each of these tracks again. The ring grab is actually a bunch of fun, and you can kind of customize your gadgets to be able to make more rings and make this game mode a lot easier for you. But you'll have 3 teams, and basically the whole idea is 1, getting first place in the race, but also collecting as many rings as possible, as your team will get bonus points for collecting rings. And the same thing can be said for basically all the other game modes. Tap boost is going to be tapping your teammates as much as possible. You'll get a point every time that you tap your teammate's vehicle. The double team dash panel is just going to be how many times you can go off of dash panels in the air or on the ground. And double team shootout, which is actually my personal favorite one, is just how much you can basically hit opponents with different items. Extreme match is a little chaotic. It kind of reminds me of how the closed network test was, where all of the items are just super chaotic and they just make everything just kind of hell. I don't super enjoy the extreme match, but I can definitely see how some people would, as it's only heavy hitting items. Or if you just kind of want to do more of a chill route and kind of not rely so much on teammates, there's always quick match available for you, where your just goal is to finish the race in first place. Now, Race Park not only has endless content where you're able to completely run through all of these rivals over and over and over again, with getting more ticket rewards every single time that you do so, but also being able to unlock all of these vehicles that are hidden in here is a super cool feature to allow you to be able to actually get something for playing this. But also just these different game modes are a bunch of fun. These are going to be something that we're going to see a lot of in festivals, and I can't wait to play those online. But these are just really fun modes to not only play for kind of a change of pace from regular racing, but also play with friends. And Race Park is such a good feature, and I'm glad it's something that they included in the game. It really feels like Race Park has endless amount of content in there where you can just constantly play it all day. Now, Time Trial, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Now, I personally, when it comes to racing games, have never been a big time trial person. It just always kind of felt weird being on the track by yourself and only having boost items in there. But I've actually really enjoyed Time Trial in this game. Like I've said now a few times, the track design is incredible, and it's really fun to explore that by yourself on the track alone, but also being able to find the most optimal paths as well, as a lot of times you have to do some really quick thinking when you're in an actual race. Time Trial, you can kind of somewhat take your time. But the really cool thing, very similar to the mainline Sonic games, is there are ranks for each of the time trials. Now, a big thing that you can unlock once you get A ranks for every single one of these tracks is they'll give you different tracks from the game that you can use inside of the jukebox that I'll get into a little bit later. But these tracks will basically consist of previous games like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Frontiers, Sonic X Shadow Generations, and many other Sonic games where you'll get tracks from that to be able to use while you're playing the game, which is a really cool thing to be able to unlock and kind of gives you a reward for actually playing time travel, which is really cool. And you just have to get A rank, which is pretty easy to do so in my opinion. There are definitely some tracks that are a little annoying. Looking at you, Kraken Bay. But when it comes to S ranking any of these stages, oh my god, is it so hard to do so. There are a few tracks like Ocean View and Kronos Island where it's pretty easy to S rank, but most of these you have to be so precise and so on point in any of these time trials to get an S rank. It is actually really freaking hard to do so. Now, you don't really get anything for getting an S rank for that I know of at this moment, but it is really fun to be able to try to get an S rank in all of these stages, and it's really cool that you have the option to be able to do the time trials in Sonic Speed and also Supersonic Speed as well. And honestly, time trial just really impressed me because for somebody that just doesn't super love time trials in games, I really enjoyed it this way. Each track, it felt like there was a different type of vehicle that benefited more from the other. It felt like I was constantly changing the gadgets, trying to get an A rank or an S rank on certain stages, or even changing the character for that matter. This is another game mode that Sega just genuinely knocked out of the park. And that's all the single player modes. Grand Prix, Race Park, Time Trial, they all did so well. I completely enjoy all of them to their own extent and for their own reasons. There's 3 game modes that I never felt really sick of at all. I've always wanted to go back to them. I'm focusing more on online and trying to get a higher legend rank currently at the moment, where I just recently hit Legend 9, but I will 100% come back to these, and I will 100% go back to Race Park when I want to grind more to Donpa tickets. Or even going back to Grand Prix and using the Supersonic method of using him to get more to Donpa tickets as well, or just watching more different interactions between the characters. I definitely want to go back to time trials to get a bunch of S ranks, as I know that's something that's going to be really challenging to do. But I like the idea of having a challenge. And I like that Sonic has definitely trended more towards having difficult options as well. Sonic Frontiers had the Coco challenges in the DLC that were super hard. Sonic Superstars had Trip's story that was super hard. And this game has the max difficulty rivals in both Grand Prix and Race Park. And you even have the S ranks in the time trial, where if you want a challenge, you have that option to do so. And I love that, where it is really appealing to not only beginners where stuff isn't super hard if you want to do a lot of the normal stuff in the game, but for those players that are really addicted to the game and want a really big challenge like myself, we have those options to be able to play in the game. And I'm super appreciative of Sega doing that. Now getting into some of the other stuff that is just kind of settings. The first thing I will say and recommend is changing your race camera to dynamic. I don't know what it is between original and dynamic, but dynamic makes the game feel like you're just driving so much faster. And it really doesn't even look like that much of a difference when you put them side by side when it comes to which angle it's at. But when you put them side by side, you can see that dynamic just looks faster. So I definitely recommend doing that, but any of the other different settings is kind of just whatever you personally like. With some of like the controller settings or dialogue and stuff like that, like you can turn all of that off. And I love that there are setting options for all of those. The other thing I'll talk about is the jukebox, as we kind of recently talked about time trials. In time trials, you unlock different Sonic tracks from Sonic Adventure and so many other Sonic games. I love the options that they give you for these, and there are a bunch of really good tracks in here, but they're definitely missing some tracks, and most notably are the Crush 40 tracks. Now, I think there is for sure a reason for that, is the main vocalist in Crush 40, Johnny Gioli, is in the middle, just coming out of a lawsuit with Sega where he actually ended up losing to them about the rights to live and learn and not being paid properly for it. So it's probably a big reason on why we're missing out on songs like Open Your Heart, Night of the Wind, I Am All of Me, and many other amazing Crush 40 tracks in this game. And it's a shame that we're missing a lot of them. Another one that we're missing, and I don't know why, considering that it's literally in the game to some capacity, is Catch Me If You Can from Sonic Riders. Jet, when he wins in a Grand Prix, literally has Catch Me If You Can play in the background from Zero Gravity, and it's literally not an option in the jukebox. Why?
Feel the power of Babylon.
There better be some type of Sonic Riders event that happens later on that gives us this, but they only added Ungravity. Some from Sonic Riders Zero Gravity and Free from Sonic Free Riders, and then they added Green Cave and Sonic Speed Riders from the original. Little disappointing if you ask me, but there are some really good options like It Doesn't Matter, Throw It All Away, 7 Rings in Hand, Ungravity is an amazing track, Metallic Madness, Infinite, which they need to make a playable character in my opinion, I'm Here, Undefeatable, Find Your Flame, and so many other great tracks. And I think that there is going to be over time a lot more tracks that they're probably going to add in the game, which is a great thing to see. Now, I don't care too much about titles personally. I mean, there's a few cool titles that you can kind of get, and I don't have any 6, whatever those titles are. I'm guessing it has something to do with the challenges. But titles is just something that appears in online. I've just kind of kept it on this Legend one forever since the game has really kind of come out, but there are some different options, and a big way that you can actually end up getting a lot of them is through Friendship. A Friendship, on the other hand, I do care about. Now, in Friendship, you're not only going to get a bunch of titles from each of the characters, but you can donate to Donpa tickets to your favorite characters that you use in the game, and they'll give you titles, stickers, and even skins based on these characters. Now, this is the way that you can get these AI racer skins that I was talking about a little bit earlier in Race Park, but also some really, really cool looking stickers in the game that you can slap on any of your vehicles. Now, this is the biggest reason why tickets are so important, is because of all the cool things that you get in this Friendship part of the game. However, these characters absolutely guzzle all of your tickets because it is so expensive to get anything. I now, at the time of this recording, have roughly about 75 hours into the game, and I only have 3 AI racer skins, which is level 4 friendship onto the characters of Sonic, Shadow, and Silver. I'm currently working towards Metal Sonic at the moment, but it is really hard to be able to get some of these tickets and really get all the AI racer skins. It's going to take you, to be honest, hundreds of hours to be able to get all of them, let alone the really cool titles that you get. There are really cool titles that you end up getting later on, but it's hard to get them because there is such a hard way to get tickets. The game just does not give you a lot in any game mode. There are definitely ways that you can try to grind Dawn Pod tickets. It's just hard to really do so. But I hope with the festivals coming out, we're going to get a lot of Dawn Pod tickets through that. But I wouldn't mind a buff to some of the Dawn Pod tickets that you get after races if that was something they were to patch about the game or update. Maybe increasing it by like ×2, to be honest with you, because you gain them so slow. And you use tickets for everything. You use it for vehicles, you use it for stickers, horns, auras, friendship. You use it for basically every unlockable in the game. So it's definitely something I wish they increased a little bit more. I definitely think that it kind of adds that grinding aspect to the game, which I like, where it kind of gives you the option to be able to continue playing the game and keep grinding the game. But I wish it was a little bit easier to at least get the skins, as those have been the most important to me. But I do genuinely really love the friendship mode to the game. I think that's a really cool feature and a really cool way to unlock a bunch of stuff. Now, moving into the last game mode inside of this game is online. Now, in the open network test, online had definitely its issues. The biggest issues it had was disconnecting and sync issues, and those are definitely still there. But I will say that it is extremely improved. I would say it's pretty rare when I disconnect from games. I think I've maybe disconnected maybe 3 times total out of all the games that I've played now that I'm Legend 9, on the verge of getting Legend 8. And sync issues definitely happen sometimes. I wish I was recording some of them, but the most recent one that I remember that just recently happened last night from this recording is I actually got in a game with Fidel of Games Cage, a very popular Sonic tuber, and I actually thought that I ended up getting 3rd place in the race, but it was such a close tie where I was slightly behind them. I guess the game's syncing issues were a little out of whack with the way that all of our connections were working, where I actually got 1st place, and that can definitely be kind of annoying sometimes. I really dislike that because it can really affect how you're going to finish a race, the way that you're using your items or drifting or doing any of that. There have been times where I am throwing items ahead of me because I think someone is ahead of me, and I'll miss the items, but I'll actually end up winning the race even though it never looked like I truly passed them. That's still something that needs to be touched on a little bit. It is significantly better than it was in the open network test, as this happened very often in an open network test. It doesn't really happen that often in here, but it does happen from time to time. And like I said, the connection issues are much better. I am very thankful that I am able to have fiber for internet, and I have a really good internet connection to my PC, but I was still experiencing like a lot of connection issues in online. And a big one that I was in the open network test was actually the Joker Festival. Now, the Hatsune Miku one is later this weekend at the time of this recording and is probably done now. I'm hoping that the connection issues aren't too bad in that, as that is what I'm really interested to see how the network works in that. But besides all of those, the online mode is so much fun. I love the ranking system. It is so much fun to be able to rank up and just completely dive into online mode. Now, there's definitely some frustrating moments as some of you guys are just insanely good at the game, but it makes for some really fun races. And I love that some of the races where I absolutely get destroyed, I'm still having fun playing the game, and I love to jump back into another game. I will say is if you're not Legend rank yet, when you do get to Legend rank, people get a lot sweatier and a lot better at the game. It took me a while to kind of adjust to how good people actually are. I've played some of the top players on the ranking board, and oh my god, you guys are insane at this game. I thought I was decent, but seeing you guys makes me feel like absolute trash. But it's a bunch of fun to be able to play against them, and it's really cool to just see how different people are using different vehicles, characters, gadgets, and all of that. And there are so many gadgets to choose from. Gadgets is definitely a really big highlight of the game, where you're going to have a bunch of different gadgets that affect different ring stuff, different techniques like your tricks, your gauge when it comes to drifting. There's even ones that help support your starting lap or the last lap in the race. There's ones that give you items at the beginning of the race or just affect the items, or even giving you an extra item slot with having 3 in total. There's so many really cool ones, and I am so glad that there are so many different ones because it doesn't feel like everyone is using the same exact one. I definitely feel like there are more popular ones than others. I definitely feel like the drift kits or any of the drift gadgets are really, really popular, and also the air trick ones are probably the most common ones that you see, but there is not everyone using them. Well, there's a lot of different people using different ones, and all of them affect you differently and are really fun just to find the ones that really fit to your personal play style. Now, mine isn't going to personally work for everyone, but in case you're wondering, what I have personally used is the Drift Charge Kit, the Air Trick Expert, and the Air Trick Bounty. You not only get a faster drift charge with the Drift Kit, but you also get the faster air tricks alongside doing the Air Trick Bounty, where you're going to get rings the faster you're doing air tricks, which is really nice. As rings are a huge thing in the game to pay attention to, as even going from 99 rings to 100 rings is almost a huge bonus and a huge buff to your vehicle and the way that you're going to be going in terms of speed. So definitely pay attention to rings and what gadgets you're using, because I think rings are definitely a really big bonus inside of online, but also just the game itself. I'm having a bunch of fun playing online. I cannot wait for the festival, and I cannot wait to try to continue to strive towards Legend 1 if I can eventually get there. I know that's a big task, and I believe only one person has done it. I think Callie is the only person to do it so far, but I'm sure by the time this video is up, there's a few people that have done it. I do hope that there is somewhat of a rank reset personally. Now, it sounds like when you get to 9,999 when it comes to your score in online, there isn't a really going forward after that, and there isn't any rewards after that. I hope that there's somewhat of a rank reset to where they add more rewards to it with different auras and different things like that, or maybe different horns or different stickers that you can unlock. They can add different stuff, and I think it would be really cool to do that. And I think it'd be cool to give us like a title that like says your rank of like season 1 or your previous rank. Like in season 1, Gully-sama hit Legend 9. Like it'd be cool to get like a title like that that kind of proves that, you know, they were a higher rank in previous seasons, even if they're not now. And I think that'd be a really cool thing. Is it seems like once you get to that max amount of points in the ranking system, there isn't really too much of a reason to play online anymore other than just doing it for fun. So I definitely get that it's going to be extremely hard to get to 9,999, but there over time, say like in a month or two, I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people that are going to be at that rank. But online is definitely a bunch of fun. The other thing I will mention is kind of exclusive to PC, so I apologize, console players. But the mod support for this game is already going absolutely nuclear. Sonic Generations has been a game that has been modded hundreds of times, and is a game that gets modded a bunch. And a lot of other games like Shadow Generations, Sonic Frontiers, and many others have been modded a bunch, and it's just kind of become a staple in any Sonic game that releases, is adding different character mods and many other things. There are already hundreds of mods on PC. There are ones that affect the icons in the menu to make it look like the 2D art styles of them. There are ones that affect different character models, like adding the rider skins in it. There are ones that give you voice lines for the Prime characters in the Werehog, which is one that I have permanently turned on now, where the Werehog now has Jason Griffith's voice, which is super nostalgic feeling. And man, I miss Jason Griffith so much as the Werehog. But there's also just a bunch of really cool character mods like Infinite, Surge, Tangle and Whisper, Metal Sonic 3.0. There's just so many different character mods, and there's so many more being developed. There's a Discord currently right now where you can kind of see people working on them and releasing them, and there are just so many different mods that are coming out every single day, and it's super fun to see all of them come out. And I really just cannot wait to see what modders create, as there's one that's in the works that I've been kind of paying attention to, which is Mephiles the Dark One, where he's completely changing the voice lines and the animations that match Shadow Generations, which looks insane. Like I said, I'm a huge Mephiles fan. I cannot wait for this mod to come out, as it looks like a bunch of fun. But when it comes to the actual game, that's honestly about it. That's everything the game has to offer, and honestly, this game truly feels like it has endless content. This game is vastly approaching my most played game on my Steam account, and I'm sure that it will by far surpass any game that I have on Steam. This game is so addicting, it hits like actual crack. I cannot put the controller down while playing this game. It is so much fun. It is definitely a game that you need to be playing. And as long as this game continues to have support, this game is going to have a very long life. Sega not only has a huge big plan for not only the DLCs, but also free update characters that are going to be coming out, but they've also stated that as long as this game has the support, they want to continue supporting this game, and I think that they're going to continue to do so within this game. I think once all the DLC is said and done, if this game is still living super well and has a really big player base, I think they're going to continue to add different characters, have different festivals, different vehicles, different tracks. I think this game has a very bright future, in my opinion, as it seems like a lot of people are really enjoying this game, and a lot of people are super addicted to it, much like I am, which is really good to see. Now, the question we still have remaining is, even though it's super addicting and has all these great features and feels like such a fun game, is it really worth $70, let alone $90 of the digital deluxe edition? I will say it's hard to justify that. I think as a whole, in the way that gaming is going when it comes to just making games 70 being the standard price is kind of crazy, as 60 has been the standard forever. And 90 for a digital deluxe is really crazy. I think if you don't really have too much of a want for the DLC or even the Prime characters, the $90 is 100% not worth it. $90 is such a steep asking price, and I don't think any digital deluxe edition should be $90, even for somebody that spent that amount of money on this game. I definitely think that 80 or even being $70 for the digital deluxe edition, much like the Frontiers game was, I think that would have been a little bit more justifiable. Now, when it comes to $70, I mean, Mario Kart did it and so many games are doing it now, and it really feels like this game has an endless amount of content and so much more planned for DLC. I think $70 is justified. I think it is definitely steep, and I hate that this is the way that gaming is going, where this is just the normal price, but at the end of the day, this is just the normal price of games at this point. I think that this game has so much content and has given me so much joy, and in just a week of the game being officially released, I have close to 80 hours in the game. Even now, just if I stopped playing the game this second, which I don't plan on doing, I've already gotten my $70 worth, in my opinion. I think in my mind, if I can get a hour of playtime out of every dollar that I spend, that is more than enough for me personally. And I have definitely gotten over the $70 at this point, and this game has just been so much fun to play. I think that this game, if you're choosing between the kart racers of Mario Kart World and Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, in a non-biased opinion and trying to be as honest as possible when being a person that enjoys the Mario Kart games, with some of my personal favorite games being Mario Kart 8, Double Dash 7, and Sonic being my favorite series, I have to be honest, I think Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is the better kart racer. I think the game has so much more content and such a better support system when it comes to a future of it, but also just a better track design, and also having a better vehicle design and having a bunch of customization features. I think the character selection is significantly better with having different crossover features and also just having a bunch of returning Sonic characters in the game, but also just better music in my opinion, even though Mario Kart World's music slaps, don't get me wrong there. And also the gadgets are just a super cool feature as well. And the Grand Prix are just significantly better in my opinion. The rival system just clears anything that Mario Kart World had to offer in the Grand Prix feature in my opinion. But I think if you're a really big kart fan and just love kart racers as a whole like I do, both of the games are great. I think you should be playing both of them. And it sounds like Mario Kart World got a huge update, and I'm willing to go back to the game eventually when I kind of get over my hype of Sonic Racing CrossWorlds and try it out again, as it seems like they changed a bunch about that in a recent update. Now, but I think if you have the decision between the two and you're both a Sonic and Mario enjoyer or just a kart racer enjoyer, I think Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is personally the significant way to go in my opinion. I mean, hey, Sega does what Nintendo, right? I'm kidding, but I do think that this game is the better game of the two, but they're both great. So to answer your question, I don't think it's worth $90. I don't think any video game on the planet is worth $90. I don't care what you offer. I don't care if when GTA 6 comes out, it is the most revolutionary game that has ever graced the earth. It ain't worth $90. I don't think any video game should ever be. Now, $70? Absolutely. That is the standard of gaming. I hate that it is going that way. I think all games should always be $60, with a digital deluxe edition being $70 to maybe $80, depending on how much content you're going to throw into it. But I think $70 is worth it. It's the standard of gaming now, and I have to rate it that way. $70 is 100% worth it. If you're a kart racer, if you're a Sonic fan, if you're a fan of any of the DLCs like SpongeBob, Minecraft, any of that, Persona, you need to be playing this game. It is so much fun. You are totally missing out if you enjoy racing games at all. Sonic Racing CrossWorlds has by far become my favorite Sonic Racing game, beating any of the Riders games or any of the All-Star Racing games, in my opinion. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Now, if you've bought the game and you are currently playing it, do you think it's worth those price points? Would you recommend it to people for that price point, or would you say maybe wait for a sale? I think it's totally justifiable if you're waiting possibly for like a Black Friday sale or Cyber Monday, or maybe even like a Christmas sale. But I definitely think this is a game that a lot of people need to be playing, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But with all that being said, guys, I'll catch you in the next one, and I'll see you on the track. Peace!